They can block the reading of the speech engine also with wireless energy. Perhaps they don't want people to hear the news or read the news. That's possible. I will restart the speech engine because I'm not going to read it myself. When I copy the text, it should start reading, so sorry about the delay. So that synthetic telepathy technology that was also used to crash these planes into the WTC of Nikola Tesla, which he intended to end all wars, can also be used for a lot of other things, including synthetic telepathy as explained in the 𝙵𝙸𝚃𝚃, the apparatus to remotely monitor and alter brainwaves. More about it also on my channel, try Something.Vegetarian. So we see a picture of Miss Haverbeck when she was younger as well. Speech errors are made by the speech engine, by the synthetic telepathy machine in theory. So let's read the article, see if I can get that speech engine to work.
Higher Regional Court no parole for 90-year-old Holocaust denier Ursula Haverbeck. October 8, 2019. Email share tweet to print. Ursula Haverbeck sits before the trial with their lawyer Wolfram Neurath in District Court in Verden, 𝙵𝙸𝚃𝚃. Ursula Haverbeck in court. Archive picture. 𝙵𝙸𝚃𝚃. The Holocaust denier Ursula Haverbeck must remain in prison. The 𝙲𝙾 court upheld a decision of the lower, after which the prison sentence of 90-year-olds today will not suspended. This was announced by a court spokesman of the German press agency on Tuesday. The decision had been already about 2 weeks ago. Since May 2018 she is serving 2 sentences of the district court's Dietmar and Verden because of multiple sedition in closed prisons in 𝙵𝙸𝚃𝚃. According to the criminal code, prisoners can apply for early release under certain conditions. Haverbeck has already been convicted several times for incitement. She claimed repeatedly that Auschwitz was not an extermination camp, but a labor camp. In Auschwitz alone, about 1.1 million people had been murdered. 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃. Date: October 8, 2019, 1956. Reading time: about 1 minute. Holocaust denier Haverbeck remains in custody. Ursula Haverbeck talking. Copyright. And Ursula Haverbeck denies that Auschwitz was an extermination camp, and therefore is in prison. Archive picture. Holocaust denier Ursula Haverbeck must remain in prison. The 𝙲𝙾 court, OLG, has confirmed a decision of the district court Bielefeld, after the prison sentence of 90-year-old today is not suspended. That said a spokesman for the higher regional court on Tuesday. Haverbeck sitting since May 2018 because of multiple sedition in closed prisons in Bielefeld among other things, pronounced by the district court Verden imprisonment.
Well, we can read the wiki article also, but perhaps Google is right. Where was the 2-year thing? How long has Ms. Haverbeck spent in prison? 2 years. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison as a consequence, October 16, 2017. So she spent more sentences before this one, I think, also in prison. So we can get to the wiki article, but first let's read the rest of this bad translation.
From District Court. No good prognosis for 90-year-old. According to the criminal code, prisoners can apply for early release under certain conditions. The district court Bielefeld looked for Haverbeck. However, no favorable prognosis and refused their request. The higher regional court ruled on 24 September that the complaint is unfounded against this decision. Haverbeck has already been convicted several times for incitement. She claimed repeated 23, 2015, 2145. The sentence 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃 Haverbeck denies in Berlin again the murder of millions of Jews. In the audience, NPD politicians like Roland Muttke, 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃 or METHYLCOBALAMIN. Additional information: Ursula Haverbeck in the dock. Imprisonment for Haverbeck, no escape abroad. First, panorama: Ursula Haverbeck to jail. A judgment on a sentence against the convicted Holocaust denier has become final. Settle abroad. Do not want to. February 13, 2018. More discussion in the program. 𝙵𝙰𝙲𝚃𝚃 Ursula, Regional Oldenburg, August 10, 2019. 1700 hours o'clock to print more news from Lower Saxony. Building and Shield of the Child and Youth Welfare Tomboy. Copyright 𝙵𝙰𝚃𝚃 Ursula carrier denies violence in Romanian home. Ralph Wolf Adjuster looks at the remains of the old border investment in the Harz Mountains, where he had once tried to flee to the west. 𝙵6:54 Ursula an escape attempt, which cost almost life. Reporter Catherine Campman when visiting the forest with the children and a supervisor of a kindergarten in the Osnabrück district. Schinkel. 𝙵6:29 Ursula one day as a teacher at the daycare center.
Well, then I won't play the video of Miss Haverbeck speaking. You can see that on YouTube as well, and you can see it on the website of the article that we just read, ndr.de, I think. Is it the same one? So there people can see the video. I don't want to risk doing anything in violation of the YouTube user policy, so this is strictly about Miss Haverbeck and the sentence. So let's read the wiki article. Oh, it's not that long.
Ursula Hedwig Haverbeck, born November 8, 1928, is a German author from Vlado, Germany. 1-2, since 2004, she has also been the subject of lawsuits due to her Holocaust denial, 1-2-3-4-5, which in Germany is a criminal offense. Her husband was Werner Georg Haverbeck, who during the Nazi period was temporarily engaged in the national leadership of the Nazi Party, founder and director in 1933 of the German Imperial Federation of Nation and Homeland, as well as writer and publisher, historian, folklorist and parson of the Christian community. 1. From 1982 he was also a scientific advisor of the Ecological Democratic Party, ODP. Citation needed. In November 2015, at the age of 87, she was sentenced to 10 months imprisonment for Holocaust denial. 6. Several additional convictions in the fall of 2016 led to further such sentences. She has unsuccessfully appealed all sentences. 7-8. Since May 7, 2018 she is serving her latest 2-year jail sentence after being picked up at her home by German police. 9. Contents: 1 Life, 1.1 Right-wing extremism, 1.2 Publication and other offenses, 1.2.1 From 2004 to 14, 1.2.2 Since 2014, 2 Publications, 2.1 Nonfiction, 3 Further reading, 4 Notes and references, 5 External links. Life born.
So I haven't verified if that's really a picture of Miss Haverbeck in her younger years. So you can all check that for yourselves. I can check the Google page. Attractive female. So I don't know. This is from 𝙵𝙾𝙲𝚃𝚃. Originally this is the link, I think. That's Ursula Haverbeck, the 89-year-old grandmother who was, I'm not showing the picture right now, and also on 𝙵𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃, but I think that's from 𝙵𝙾𝙲𝚃. Perhaps it's the original source, I'm not sure. Twink memes. So I have my doubts about it.
𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃, today part of 𝚲𝙾𝙽𝚃, in Hesse, Haverbeck, by her own account, lived in Sweden for 4 years as a homeland displaced person, Heimatvertrieben, from East Prussia, and studied pedagogy, philosophy and linguistics, including 2 years in Scotland. For over 50 years, Haverbeck worked in the political shadow of her husband. After her husband's death in 1999, she took over many of his functions, including chair of the international adult education establishment 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃𝚃𝚃 in Vlado, North Rhine-Westphalia, which they both founded in 1963. 1-2. The Collegium Humanum was first active in the German environmental movement, and from the early 1980s openly turned to the right-wing extremism movement. The establishment was subsequently banned by the German Federal Ministry of the Interior, 𝙤𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚃𝚃𝚃 in 2008. 1-2. From 1983 until 1989, Haverbeck was also president of the World Union for Protection of Life, Section Germany, and disclosed in this non-governmental position her opposition towards the Western system and the Allied occupation of the Federal Republic of Germany. She was temporarily a member of the Ecological Democratic Party, ODP. 10. In 1989, at the instigation of the ODP regional associations Bremen and North Rhine-Westphalia, she was excluded from the party, amongst other reasons because she attempted to organize a right-wing coalition of the ODP, NPD, and other groups. 11. In 1992, Haverbeck became first chairperson of the newly founded Memorial Sites Association, German, Verein, remaining in that position until 2003. 2. The registered association was established in May 1992 with the statute to build a dignified remembrance for the German civilian victims of World War II by bombing, abduction, expulsion and detention centers, to end the unjustified unilateral nature of the view of history and struggle to overcome the negatives of the past. German, die Undirekt Verdict and 𝚃𝚃𝚃𝚃 der Geschichtstraitung und Vergangenheitsbewältigung zu binden. 2. She was a friend of Gudrun Berwitz, Heinrich Himmler's daughter. 12. Right-wing extremism. Well before Germany's reunification in 1990, Haverbeck cultivated connections to right-wing political groups like the NPD, National Democratic Party of Germany, with the aim of a major national collective movement in Germany. This orientation intensified in the years following. It was probably via this path that around 2000 she became acquainted with the neo-Nazi lawyers Horst Mahler. From this she became active as member and deputy director of the Society for the Rehabilitation of Those Persecuted for Refutation of the Holocaust, German Verein zur Rehabilitierung der Wegenbestriedens des Holocaustverfolgten, 2, which was founded in Vlodho on November 9, 2003, the anniversary of Kristallnacht, chaired by the Swiss Holocaust denier Bernhard Schaub. Additionally, almost all well-known Holocaust deniers, including Ernst Zundel, Canada, Robert Forson, France, Germa Rudolph, Jürgen Graf, Gerd Hunsick, Wilhelm Stieglitz, Frederick Tobin, Australia, Andres Studer, Hans Dietrich Sander, Manfred Roeder, Frank Runnick and Anneliese Riemer were also involved in its establishment. The organization was subsequently banned in May 2008 by the German Federal Ministry of the Interior, Bundesministerium des Innern, on the grounds of being hostile to the Constitution of Germany, publication and other offenses from 2004 to 14. In June 2004, the District Court of Badenhausen sentenced Haverbeck to a €5,400 fine, 180 days at €30 each, for incitement to hatred and Holocaust denial. 113. In the House Journal of the Collegium Humanum, The Voice of Conscience, 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚂𝚃, she had introduced a form of denial of the Holocaust. 13. Together with the editor of the magazine, Ernst Haderkors, the two incriminated publication issues were subsequently confiscated by the German authorities. In a subsequent issue of The Voice of Conscience, it was again claimed that the mass destruction of the Jews was a myth, packaged in a citation by the Russian newspaper Ruski Vestnik, the Russian messenger, who had published in Russia a special revisionist analysis issue of Jürgen Graf's work, with the special Ruski Vestnik issue later cited favorably in Moscow's newspaper Pravda by Valentin Prusakov. Citation needed. It was alleged that the number of Jewish victims of National Socialism did not amount to 6 million, but only about 500,000. On March 10, 2005, the court found a second case against Haverbeck and Kors. However, at the request of the Bielefeld Public Prosecutor's Office, the case was closed since.
So basically, controlled opposition might use that other image, which I think is not a picture of Miss Haverbeck probably. It's a meme, 25 plus best friend zone, logo memes, the memes friend zone memes. So perhaps this is from a movie or something. Perhaps anybody knows the original source of this picture. So I'm still not certain if it is Miss Haverbeck, but probably not.
It was immaterial compared to another. Another article by Haverbeck in The Voice of Conscience, November/December 2005, posited a thesis that Adolf Hitler was just not to be understood from the believed Holocaust or his alleged war obsession, but only by a divine mission in the world historical context. This triggered a renewed process for Holocaust denial, and in June 2007 another fine of 40 days at €30 each by the Dortmund Regional Court. 1. Altogether a total fine of €6,000, 200 days at €30 each, was formed. In June 2009, the District Court of Badenhausen found Haverbeck guilty of offending Charlotte Knobloch, president of the Central Council of Jews in Germany, who had earlier publicly advocated censorship of the Collegium Humanum Holocaust Denier Ursula. 114, according to the July 1, 2009 newspaper article.
So these are supposed pictures of beautiful German women World War II, Nazi girls, Hitlerjugend, but this seems to me like it's edited on. These points are sticking out. So this is about the only picture, and the rest are copyrighted in a way that I won't show the original image, only the thumbnail. So, but there are others, though I have my doubts about, or perhaps it's better to look on Hitlerjugend then, to have an idea of what they looked like back then. League of German Girls. So they all had to stand in line. Onto the hydrophonic grow-ups. This looks uncinnated as well. This is not a real background, I think. So to what extent were they forced into doing these things? What happened to real resistance? We can study it all online. Lots of information about the Hitlerjugend. So that's typical of fascism. I've discussed fascism as well. What's evil about it, basically. The tenets of fascism. But I have to say imperialism and dictatorialism are the two most evil tenets, and you also have racism, homophobia, and anti-Semitism. So that is why it's not defendable from an ethical point of view, you could argue. So let's continue reading the article about Ursula Haverbeck.
And Mindner 𝙲𝙾𝙃𝚃, Haverbeck-Hetzel wrote in her open letter response for the attention of 𝙲𝙾, among other things, 𝙲𝙾 should not interfere in German domestic affairs. If 𝙲𝙾 does not like it in Germany, then she could return to her origin in Eurasia, and, you do not have to live in Germany, in this evil land, where, as you say, 6 million of you were gassed. 114.
So here we can also see an article about the indoctrination of German children on ThoughtCo. I don't know if that's kosher, so at first I have to check it out, so let's continue reading.
Her open letter also contained hostility such as prepare yourself for the day of truth. It is near and unstoppable, as well as I warn you. If you continue as before, then a new pogrom could result, which would be horrific. 114. 𝙲𝙾 subsequently filed a criminal complaint, and Haverbeck-Hetzel was sentenced to a fine of €2,700. 14. Since 2014. In November 2014, Haverbeck-Hetzel lodged a police complaint against the Central Council of Jews in Germany. She accused the council of persecution of innocent people. The investigation was abandoned in December 2014.
I think this article may be alright. So she could also have been tortured and hypnotized during this period. It's not unthinkable.
The Bielefeld Public Prosecutor's Office eventually examined proceedings against Haverbeck-Hetzel for false accusation. 5.
And of course, if she was hypnotized successfully, then she wouldn't remember that and could be programmed to deny it also.
In the ARD television broadcast series Panorama, German TV series, produced by NDR in March 2015, and despite proceedings prohibiting, Haverbeck-Hetzel again denied the mass destruction of the Jews and discussed her views. 15. She described this Holocaust as the biggest and most persistent lie in history. 3/4/15/16, Haverbeck-Hetzel published a video on YouTube protesting against the trial of Oskar Groening, the so-called accountant of Auschwitz, and distributed leaflets outside the court which were reported to feature Holocaust denial. 1718, Haverbeck-Weitzel became the subject of a new investigation initiated in June 2015 by the Bielefeld Public Prosecutor's Office, in connection with a publication in the journal The Voice of the Empire, Die Stimme des Reiches, prompting Haverbeck-Weitzel's home as well as that of 3 other accused persons to be searched by the State Criminal Police Office of Lower Saxony, Landeskriminalamt Niedersachsen, for evidence. 19. In November, after being found guilty, she was sentenced to 10 months in prison. 620, in the Hamburg court, she insisted the status of Auschwitz as a place of death is not historically proven and is only a belief. 21. In September 2016, Haverbeck-Weitzel was sentenced to 10 months imprisonment for Holocaust denial, without the option for parole, but remained free until an appeal was heard concerning the earlier case. She had written to Dietmold's mayor, Rainer Heller, the previous February, insisting Auschwitz was no more than a labor camp and those who survived were only alleged witnesses following the trial of former Auschwitz SS guard Reinhold Hanning. 22-23, in October, she was sentenced to 11 months in Badenhausen for incitement to hate. In court again, the next month, Haverbeck-Weitzel was sentenced in Verden to 21/2 more years in jail for Holocaust denial after restating her claims in Voice of the Reich, Stimme des Reiches. 24.
So, for example, the Stanley Kubrick masterpiece with Dr. Strangelove, with that arm that won't come down, that he has to knock down himself. Perhaps that's an example of Nazi programming. So I don't know much about history, and I think no one does, that we cannot trust what we read in the history books, because history is written by the victor. So what was that other article that I just found? This illustration is now 𝙲𝙰𝙲𝚃𝚃. So it's not 𝙲𝙰𝙲illustration.com anymore, though that's still listed on some pictures. And I think some of them are really masterpieces as well. So why hasn't that Federal Reserve Bank, why hasn't the Fed been audited yet? Because Trump thought it was so important before he was elected to audit the Fed. And now I don't hear anybody about that anymore lately. Against the chemtrails are not contrails, easy to prove. And here we see the MasterCard credit card forming a guillotine for the dead slave in this illustration.com. So I think that these illustrations are awesome. I had prepared a picture, so I have to find it first. I downloaded it, I think, yes. It seems to me like they're trying to depersonalize some people. How many people know what David Dees looks like in reality? And then there's Red Eyes Radio. I think that they're kind of suppressed as well. I think the algorithms are not helping people that are trying to do the right thing. People that advocate illegal population reduction. And you could argue tasers should be forbidden. All these taser deaths in Europe, they're forbidden. You could compare and look at countries and where it goes best. You could argue they have the best laws and system. So, but what was the other thing that I was reading? Must be here somewhere. Agenda 21. Weird, if I search this illustration wiki, then I get Agenda 21 as first search results. David Dees is the second. Well, underneath the other people ask things. Some dare call it conspiracy. Conspiracy facts. Depends on what we're talking about. Of course, you have conspiracy theories and you have conspiracy facts. And perhaps we should make a good distinguishment between the two, so that people know what we think is proven beyond any reasonable doubt or any shadow of a doubt, and what we think are conspiracy theories. Former Sesame Street illustrator turned conspiracy theorist, not conspiracy factist, political cartoonist and purveyor of utter madness. Or the utter madness? I don't think so. So this is rationalwiki.org. So they are edited by the Vatican and the CIA. That's reported by Agency France Presse and other news agencies, because they can see that from the track record who edited the articles and stuff. So anybody can edit Wikipedia, they say. But when I corrected their article about aluminum foil, tin foil, then it was edited back basically. It was like a decade ago or so. But there was a good reason, they had a good reason for that. So it's all explained on the Wikipedia website, how to contribute. For some subjects there are no articles yet. So I'm not blaming Wiki, basically. Not blaming anybody, just reading Wiki. Okay, there was something I have to search if I can find the article I wanted to show, or that I had googled for. David Dees, Trump in bed with the globalist New World Order. Well, of course, who isn't? David Dees began his career as a commercial artist in the early 80s and has produced advertising illustration for Paramount Studios, Hanna-Barbera and Disney Home Video. So people can read that on the 𝙵𝙾𝙃𝚃.com. That was not the one either. Interesting image of Macron with Merkel and Rothschild in the background. The Louvre, isn't that the Louvre, the pyramid-shaped glass thing in Paris? Very nice. And well, I don't know if I should show these pictures on YouTube. Some people might find them offensive, so it's good I have the video show on. Okay, so that wasn't what I wanted to show either. I'm flipping through the tabs. I wanted to read this one also. Oh, this article is quite long. So the following is on michael-manheimer.net. 90-year-old Ursula Haverbeck was arrested yesterday with a large deployment of police in her apartment. And this is also a translation by Google News, so people can read the original German. This is from 2018. And the arrests that took place in 2018, or the arrests that took place before 2018. So this is a reflection on that by Michael Mannheimer, perhaps.
The 90-year-old Ursula Haverbeck was arrested yesterday with a large deployment of police in her apartment May 8, 2018. Michael Mannheimer 241. Read, 31,518. Woman Haverbeck, discredited from the Star as Nazi Oma, was created by a lunch on Monday, May 7, 2018. Large contingent of police in arrested her apartment building and directly into the prison Bielefeld transferred, by Michael Mannheimer, August 5, 2018. Using material of the academic commentator Old Man, Why Ursula Haverbeck Should Never Have Been Indicted, the Federal Republic of Germany has signed a decision of the UN Human Rights Committee from 2011 that for all signatories to the UN Convention on Human Rights binding is, where it says, laws that make the expression of opinions, historical facts punishable, are incompatible with the obligations that impose the Convention the signatory states with regard to the respect of opinion and freedom of expression. Thus Haverbeck should never incarcerated in prison, would never accused or must never be convicted. This incident also shows that not 90-year-old Haverbeck but Merkel is the real criminal, it is the VMTL. Largest Rechtsbrecher in German history and does not give a damn about national and international laws and regulations. The return of the Judge Furchtbaron, as I reported, the return of the terrible judge, the 90-year-old Ursula Haverbeck must for 2 years in prison for in the form in which define it, the victorious powers, doubting the Holocaust, the German judicial system, almost every crime by immigrants treated with extreme leniency and cultural understanding but merciless when it comes to German. However, you have this limit: if the German is left, possibly a member of the Greens, the SPD or the Left Party, then he can beat up policemen, set fire to police cars, throwing Molotov cocktails, and gets a maximum penalty of 6 months or 1 year probation. The fine, many you've got already forgotten, is adopted by a unanimous decision of the DGB and Anti-Fascist Criminals of the Union. And if a chancellor seems to know no more law, virtually every German law, and virtually every article of the basic law tramples, countercurrent to their own people from destruction, and governed by the principle of a totalitarian autocrat, then instead she is discharged from the judiciary in handcuffs, one award after another. State Medal for Angela Merkel, Grand Cross of Merit of the Italian Republic, awarded on March 21, 2006. 𝙵𝙰𝙲𝚃𝚃𝚃 Order, the highest decoration of Saudi Arabia for foreign leaders, received in 2007. Grand Cross of the Norwegian Order of Merit, received on October 15, 2007. Grand Cross of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany, received by German President Horst Kohler January 11, 2008. Grand Cross of the Order El Sol del Peru, awarded by Peruvian President Alan Garcia May 17, 2008. Grand Cross of the Order of Infante Dom Henrique, awarded by the President of Portugal, Aníbal Cavaco Silva on March 2, 2009. 181 Order Star Planina, the highest Bulgarian order, received October 11, 2010. Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Pari Passu with the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian award of the United States of America, received by President Barack Obama June 7, 2011. Medal of Honor of the President, Israel's highest award, 2014, received by President Shimon Peres on February 25. 2014. Grand Gold Decoration with Ribbon for Services to the Republic of Austria, presented on August 27, 2015 by the Austrian Chancellor Werner Faymann. Awards of private organizations for Angela Merkel. Award of the German Society E.V. for services to the German and European understanding in 2005. 186 Leopold Prize of the Central Council of Jews in Germany in 2007. 187 World Statesman Award of the Appeal of Conscience Foundation, awarded in 2007 for her life's work. 188 Robert Schuman Medal of the EPP Award.
Well, I think I'm not gonna read that. People can check it for themselves. And there are also other images that I don't want to talk or show in my broadcast. I have a Twitter page, Never Again World War on Twitter. People can check. And I advise everybody to be prepared with that radiological water filter and storable food and a safe place that will not be drowned by Putin's nuclear torpedoes and the dikes that will be broken, and then there will be a tidal wave in countries with dikes, basically. And you can study that nuclear map of your country for yourselves online. So yeah, then the land has to be about 100 meters above sea level, and otherwise it's flooded, so then people in their bomb shelters drown. So it's pretty bad. Putin's nuclear torpedo with the 90-meter high tidal wave that I showed animated GIFs of what it would look like when it would happen, basically. If they would obliterate parts of Iran, like Trump said, then of course the ally of Iran, Russia, would retaliate for its ally. Putin already made clear he doesn't agree with their sanctions. So Jesuits and Masons have planned this global government and population reduction to 500 million. And of course they want to pretend that the opposite is true. So they have an open, false world peace policy and secret true universal war policy. And their military order posing as a religious order, etc. So they may pretend the opposite is true and ridicule the truth, but it's still better to be prepared just in case. So radiological water filter, storable food and a shelter may be required around Christmas, the Christ Mass, on the Roman calendar that's coming up with the trees on, treason, and what have you, fireworks. So let me know what you all think, and let the world know. People can also Skype 𝙵𝙃𝚃𝚃𝚃 if they'd like to do a live broadcast together, and people can let the world know in the comments. What I'd like to know is if you think that Miss Haverbeck should be imprisoned for life, or if she should already be released after 2 years, or however much time she spent in prison already, what the proper sentence would be. And if she was hypnotized, perhaps she is not convincible, not even if you show her the truth. She cannot be convinced. So I don't know if it's wise to lock up an old lady that has been imprisoned for over 2 years already for the crime of denying the Holocaust, or the crime of inciting to commit illegal acts through their statement, through their illegal Holocaust denial, of course. So there's a list of countries also on Wikipedia. Perhaps it's good to put that in this broadcast to show in what countries Holocaust denial is illegal. So these are the countries with laws against Holocaust denial. So according to this map, there are no laws against it in Canada, in the US, in Africa, South America, Brazil, Peru, etc., in Saudi Arabia, India, Australia, Norway, Finland, England, and Ireland, and Netherlands is also grey, but in Netherlands you go to jail because they consider it triggering, not because of the Holocaust denial that in and of itself is not illegal in the Netherlands. That's what I remember of it. I pressed the back button. Okay, laws against Holocaust denial. We can read this. We could read the whole thing, it's not that long. I thought there was another article I had selected that I wanted to read. It's pretty late already, but I want to get it in this broadcast, so let's read this one then.
Laws against Holocaust denial from Wikipedia. The free encyclopedia. Jump to navigation, jump to search. Countries with laws against Holocaust denial. Holocaust denial, the denial of the systematic genocidal killing of approximately 6 million Jews in Europe by Nazi Germany in the 1930s and 1940s, is illegal in 16 European countries and Israel. Many countries also have broader laws that criminalize genocide denial. Of the countries that ban Holocaust denial, some, such
Well, I'm thinking about showing an image. I don't know if I should show it or not. Perhaps it's better if I don't.
as Austria, Germany, Hungary, and Romania, were among the perpetrators of the Holocaust, and many of these also ban other elements associated with Nazism, such as the expression of Nazi symbols. Laws against Holocaust denial have been proposed in many nations, in addition to those nations that have criminalized such acts, including the United States and the United Kingdom. Such proposals for laws have received criticism and faced opposition, most significantly, from civil rights and human rights advocates who contend that such laws would violate people's established rights of freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Organizations representing Jews and other groups victimized during the Holocaust have generally been split, in opinion, about such laws. Contents 1 Overview and Commentary 2 By Country 2. Overview and commentary. Scholars have pointed out that countries that specifically ban Holocaust denial generally have legal systems that limit speech in other ways, such as banning hate speech. According to 𝙲𝙾𝙽𝚃𝚾, this is a split between the common law countries of the United States, Ireland and many British Commonwealth countries from the civil law countries of continental Europe and Scotland. In civil law countries the law is generally more prescriptive. Also, under the civil law regime, the judge acts more as an inquisitor, gathering and presenting evidence as well as interpreting it. 1. Michael Wine argues that Holocaust denial can inspire violence against Jews. He states, Jews' experience in the post-World War II era suggests that their rights are best protected in open and tolerant democracies that actively prosecute all forms of racial and religious hatred. 2. Janos Kiss 3, and in particular Andras Schiffer 4, feel the work of Holocaust deniers should be protected by a universal right to free speech. An identical argument was used 5, by the Hungarian Constitutional Court, Alkotmányi Bíróság, led by László Szalem when it struck down a law against Holocaust denial in 1992. The argument that laws punishing Holocaust denial are incompatible with the European Convention on Human Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights have been rejected by institutions of the Council of Europe, the European Commission of Human Rights, 6, the European Court of Human Rights 7, and also by the United Nations Human Rights Committee. 8. Historians who oppose such laws include Raoul Hilberg, 9, Richard J. Evans, Pierre Vidal-Naquet, and Timothy Garton-Ash. 10. Other prominent opponents include Christopher Hitchens, Peter Singer, 11, and Noam Chomsky, 12, who wrote, "It seems to me something of a scandal that it is even necessary to debate these issues 2 centuries after Voltaire defended the right of free expression for views he detested. It is a poor service to the memory of the victims of the Holocaust to adopt a central doctrine of their murderers." 13. An uproar resulted when Serge used one of Chomsky's essays without explicit permission as a foreword to a book of Holocaust denial essays, see Forson Affair. In January 2019, in an interview in The New Yorker in connection with the publication of her book, Anti-Semitism, Here and Now, Holocaust historian Deborah E. Lipps had expressed her opposition to laws against expressing Holocaust denial. "I still am a firm opponent of laws against Holocaust denial. First of all, I'm a pretty fierce advocate of the First Amendment, having been sued for libel, and having had that in my life for about 6 years, I'm more than ever, even though libel is not covered by the First Amendment, David Irving wouldn't have been able to sue me in this country because he was a public figure. But I also don't think that these laws are efficacious. Forget the morality, I don't think they work. I think they turn whatever is being outlawed into forbidden fruit. We saw it in Germany, when Mein Kampf was released from the embargo on it a few years ago. People bought it because suddenly it was something they could get a hold of. I just don't think these laws work. And the third reason I'm opposed to them is I don't want politicians making a decision on what can and cannot be said. That scares me enormously." 14. These laws have also been criticized on the grounds that education is more effective than legislation at combating Holocaust denial and that the laws will make martyrs out of those imprisoned for their violation. 15. By country. Australia. While Australia lacks a specific law against Holocaust denial, Holocaust denial is prosecuted in Australia under various laws against hate speech and racial vilification. 1617. Gerald Frederick Tobin and his Adelaide Institute are the best known case of someone being prosecuted in Australia for Holocaust denial. 18. Austria. In Austria, the Verbotsgesetz 1947 provided the legal framework for the process of denazification in Austria and suppression of any potential revival of Nazism. In 1992, it was amended to prohibit the denial or gross minimization of the Holocaust. National Socialism Prohibition Law, 1947, Amendments of 1992, Section 3 grams. He who operates in a manner characterized other than that in Section 3A, 3F will be punished, revitalizing of the step or identification with imprisonment from 1 to up to 10 years, and in cases of particularly dangerous suspects or activity, be punished with up to 20 years imprisonment. 19. Section 3 hours. As an amendment to Section 3 grams, whoever denies, grossly plays down, approves or tries to excuse the National Socialist genocide or other National Socialist crimes against humanity in a print publication, in broadcast or other media. 20. Belgium. In Belgium, Holocaust denial was made illegal in 1995, Negationism Law, 1995, Amendments of 1999, Article 1. Whoever, in the circumstances given in Article 444 of the Penal Code denies, grossly minimizes, attempts to justify, or approves the genocide committed by the German National Socialist regime during the Second World War shall be punished by a prison sentence of 8 days to 1 year, and by a fine of 26 francs to 5,000 francs. For the application of the previous paragraph, the term genocide is meant in the sense of Article 2 of the International Treaty of December 9, 1948 on preventing and combating genocide. In the event of repetitions, the guilty party may in addition have his civic rights suspended in accordance with Article 33 of the Penal Code. Art. 2. In the event of a conviction on account of a violation under this Act, it may be ordered that the judgment, in its entity or an excerpt of it, is published in one of more newspapers, and is displayed, to the charge of the guilty party. Art. 3. Chapter 7 of the First Book of the Penal Code and Article 85 of the same code are also applicable to this Act. Art. 4. The Center for Equal Opportunities and Opposition to Racism, as well as any association that at the time of the facts had a legal personality for at least 5 years, and which, on the grounds of its statutes, has the objective of defending moral interests and the honor of the resistance or the deported, may act in law in all legal disputes arising from the application of this Act. 21. Bosnia and Herzegovina. In May 2007, 𝙃𝙷𝙰𝙃𝚃, a Bosniak MP in the Bosnian parliament, proposed a legislation on criminalizing the denial of Holocaust, genocide and crimes against humanity. This was the first time that somebody in Bosnia and Herzegovina's parliament proposed such a legislation. Bosnian Serb MPs voted against this legislation and proposed that such an issue should be resolved within the Criminal Code of Bosnia and Herzegovina. 22. Following this, on May 6, 2009, Bosniak MPs Adem Huskic, 𝙃𝙷𝙰𝙃𝚃 and Remziga Kadrić proposed to the BH Parliament a change to the Criminal Code of Bosnia and Herzegovina where Holocaust, genocide and crimes against humanity denial would be criminalized. 23. Bosnian Serb MPs have repeatedly been against such a legislation, claiming that the law would cause disagreement and even animosity, according to SNSD member Lazar Prodanovic. 24. Czech Republic. In the Czech Republic, Holocaust denial and denial of communist perpetrated atrocities is illegal. Law against support and dissemination of movements oppressing human rights and freedoms, 2001, Section 260, 1. The person who supports or spreads movements oppressing human rights and freedoms or declares national, race, religious or class hatred or hatred against other group of persons will be punished by prison from 1 to 5 years. 2. The person will be imprisoned from 3 to 8 years if, a. he or she commits the crime mentioned in paragraph 1, in print, film, radio, television or other similarly effective manner, b. he or she commits the crime as a member of an organized group, c. he or she commits the crime in a state of national emergency or state of war. Section 261. The person who publicly declares sympathies with such a movement mentioned in Section 260, will be punished by prison from 6 months to 3 years. Section 261. A. The person who publicly denies, puts in doubt, approves or tries to justify Nazi or communist genocide or other crimes of Nazis or communists will be punished by prison of 6 months to 3 years. 25. France. In France, the Gay Act, voted for on July 13, 1990, makes it illegal to question the existence of crimes that fall in the category of crimes against humanity as defined in the London Charter of 1945, on the basis of which Nazi leaders were convicted by the International Military Tribunal at Nuremberg in 1945-46. When the act was challenged by Robert Forson, the Human Rights Committee upheld it as a necessary means to counter possible anti-Semitism. 26. Similarly, the applications of Pierre Murray and Roger Garaudy were rejected by the European Court of Human Rights, in 1996 and 2003. 27. In 2012, the Constitutional Council of France ruled that to extend the 𝙵𝙰𝙲𝚃 Act to the Armenian genocide denial was unconstitutional because it violated the freedom of speech. 28-29. The 𝙵𝙰𝙃 Act itself, however, was found consistent with the Constitution 4 years later. 30. Law No. 9615 to repress acts of racism, anti-Semitism and xenophobia, 1990. Modifications of the Law of July 29, 1881 on the Freedom of the Press Art. 8. Article 24 of the Law on the Freedom of the Press of July 29, 1881 is supplemented by the following provisions. In the event of judgment for one of the facts envisaged by the preceding subparagraph, the court will be able moreover to order, except when the responsibility for the author of the infringement is retained on the base for Article 42 and the first subparagraph for Article 43 for this law or the first three subparagraphs for Article 93(3) for the Law No. 82-652 for July 29, 1982 on the audiovisual communication. The deprivation of the rights enumerated to the 2(0) and 3(0) of Article 42 of the Penal Code for imprisonment of 5 years maximum. Art. 9. As an amendment to Article 24 of the Law of July 29, 1881 on the freedom of the press, Article 24, A, is written as follows. Art. 24, A. Those who have disputed the existence of one or more crimes against humanity such as they are defined by Article 6 of the Statutes of the International Tribunal Military annexed in the Agreement of London of August 8, 1945 and which were carried out either by the members of an organization declared criminal pursuant to Article 9 of the aforementioned statute, or by a person found guilty such crimes by a French or international jurisdiction shall be punished by 1 month to 1 year's imprisonment or a fine. Art. 13. It is inserted, after Article 48(1) of the Law of July 29, 1881 on the freedom of the press, Article 48(2) thus written. Art. 48(2). Publication or publicly expressed opinion encouraging those to whom it is addressed to pass a favorable moral judgment on one or more crimes against humanity and tending to justify these crimes, including collaboration, or vindicate their perpetrators shall be punished by 1 to 5 years imprisonment or a fine. 31. Germany Section 130 Incitement to hatred in Germany, Volksverhetzung, incitement of the people 32-33, is a concept in German criminal law that bans incitement to hatred against segments of the population. It often applies to, though not limited to, trials relating to Holocaust denial in Germany. In addition, Strafgesetzbuch Section 86A outlaws various symbols of unconstitutional organizations, such as Nazi symbolism or the ISIS flag. Section 130 Incitement to Hatred, 1985, revised 1992, 2002, 2005, 2015 34-35, 1. Whosoever, in a manner capable of disturbing the public peace, incites hatred against a national, racial, religious group or a group defined by their ethnic origins, against segments of the population or individuals because of their belonging to one of the aforementioned groups or segments of the population or calls for violent or arbitrary measures against them, or assaults the human dignity of others by insulting, maliciously maligning an aforementioned group, segments of the population or individuals because of their belonging to one of the aforementioned groups or segments of the population, or defaming segments of the population, shall be liable to imprisonment from 3 months to 5 years. 34-35. 3. Whosoever publicly or in a meeting approves of, denies or downplays an act committed under the rule of National Socialism of the kind indicated in Section 6, 1, of the Code of International Criminal Law, in a manner capable of disturbing the public peace shall be liable to imprisonment not exceeding 5 years or a fine. 3435. 4. Whosoever publicly or in a meeting disturbs the public peace in a manner that violates the dignity of the victims by approving of, glorifying, or justifying National Socialist rule of arbitrary force shall be liable to imprisonment not exceeding 3 years or a fine. 3435. The definition of Section 6 of the Code of Crimes Against International Law referenced in the above Section 130 is as follows. Section 6 Genocide. 1. Whoever with the intent of destroying as such, in whole or in part, a national, racial, religious or ethnic group, kills a member of the group, causes serious bodily or mental harm to a member of the group, especially of the kind referred to in Section 226 of the Criminal Code, inflicts on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about their physical destruction in whole or in part, imposes measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transfers a child of the group to another group, shall be punished with imprisonment for life. 36. Other sections. The following sections of the German Criminal Code are also relevant. Section 189 Disparagement of the memory of deceased persons, 1985, Amendments of 1992. Whoever disparages the memory of a deceased person shall be punished with imprisonment for not more than 2 years or a fine. 37. Section 194 Application for criminal prosecution. 1. An insult shall be prosecuted.
So basically in the kitchen, I got the idea, if it's proven beyond any reasonable doubt, 6 million Jews were genocided in the Holocaust, then you could argue it should be illegal worldwide to deny the Holocaust. And of course I've covered these 50 population reduction quotes, and there are people that advocate a population reduction to 500 million. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have planned a world war over Iran, and perhaps after that it will be illegal worldwide to deny the Holocaust.
Only upon complaint, if the act was committed through dissemination of writings, Section 11 subsection 3, or making them publicly accessible in a meeting or through a presentation by radio, then a complaint is not required if the aggrieved party was persecuted as a member of a group under the National Socialist or another rule by force and decree. This group is a part of the population and the insult is connected with this persecution. The act may not, however, be prosecuted ex officio if the aggrieved party objects. When the aggrieved party deceases, the rights of.
But I'm thinking if they're hypnotized and or mind controlled, brain controlled, because I mind control, then perhaps you cannot convince them that it's best to be prepared with that radiological water filter and storable food, no matter what you say and how clear it is that there is no other way to reduce the global population to 500 million. They've tried a lot of things. Airborne Ebola Reston, depleted uranium, and Zika mosquitoes, the oral polio vaccine, which caused 47,500 cases of acute flaccid paralysis, which is worse than polio. Sponsored by Bill and Melinda Gates. So that's not really helping.
Complaint and of objection devolve on the relatives indicated in Section 77 subsection 2. the objection may not be withdrawn. 2. If the memory of a deceased person has been disparaged, then the relatives indicated in Section 77 subsection 2 are entitled to file a complaint. If the act was committed through dissemination of writings, Section 11 subsection 3, or making them publicly accessible in a meeting or through a presentation by radio, then a complaint is not required if the deceased person lost his life as a victim of the National Socialist or another rule by force and decree and the disparagement is connected therewith. The act may not, however, be prosecuted ex officio if a person entitled to file a complaint objects. The objection may not be withdrawn. 38. Greece in September 2014, with a vote of 54 out of 99 present of the 300-member Hellenic Parliament, the body was in summer session at the time. Greece amended its 1979 law on the penalization of actions or activities intending unto racial discrimination, N.927/1979, to make malicious denial of the Holocaust and other crimes against humanity for the purposes of inciting violence, discrimination or hatred or by way of threat or insult, a criminal offense. 39. In contrast to other European countries, the Greek law is not a blanket ban on expressing the opinion that a genocide did not take place, but rather requires an additional condition of intending to cause violence, incite hatred or threaten or insult a protected group. Law 927/1979, as amended by Law 4285/2014.
Well, then I'm thinking perhaps I should show that picture because perhaps it is illegal incitement to commit violence and or hatred. But I think I'll think about it a bit longer. It's just a illustration image, and because the original website disappeared, I don't know if it is incongruence or if it's allowed. Basically, if it's not in violation of the user policy, then, but I don't know how to find out if it is or not, basically. So if there are 227 words that you cannot say on YouTube, then perhaps there are also pictures that cannot be shown. A mosquito bite on my hand. The palm of my hand. I've never had that before. But there is a mosquito flying around, so that's why I was snapping my hands together. So perhaps it's best if I just don't show it. And don't talk about people whose YouTube channels were removed, etc.
Article 1, Public Incitement of Violence or Hatred. 1. Whoever intentionally, publicly, verbally or in print, over the Internet or through any other medium or means, incites, causes, arouses or solicits acts or activities which are capable of causing discrimination, hatred or violence against a person or group of persons, who are identified on the basis of race, color, religion, genealogical background, national or ethnic origins, sexual orientation, gender identity or disability, in a way that endangers public order or poses a threat to the life, liberty or bodily integrity of such persons, shall be imprisoned for between 3 months and 3 years and fined between 5 and 20,000, 5.000 to 20.000 euros. Article 2, Public Approval or Denial or Crimes. 1. Whoever intentionally, publicly, verbally or in print, over the Internet or through any other medium or means, approves, ridicules or maliciously denies the existence or seriousness of crimes of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, the Holocaust and other crimes of Nazism which have been recognized by decisions of.
So I'm interested in evidence. So I think they must have evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that 6 million people were gassed, because Holocaust denial is illegal in many countries. So if you know that evidence, let us know in the comments or Skype 𝙵𝙯𝚃𝚃𝚃, because I've been searching online for things that prove beyond any reasonable doubt that 6 million Jews were gassed, and besides that, of course, over 4 million German people died. So that's one of the reasons I made Never Again World War on Twitter. So I think it must exist, but I run into other websites and I haven't found it yet. And, for example, some people claim that the Nuremberg testimonies were begotten under torture. I don't know if that's true or verifiable, how they can be so sure. To also see the calculations. It's very macabre, of course. But I think it is important, when it's illegal in so many countries, to get our facts straight, so that we know what we're talking about.
International courts or the Hellenic Parliament, and this behavior is targeted against a group of people, or member thereof, which is identified on the basis of race, color, religion, genealogical background, national or ethnic origins, sexual orientation, gender identity or disability, when this behavior is expressed in a way that is capable of inciting violence or hatred, or is of a threatening or insulting character against such a group or member thereof, is subject to the penalties of paragraph 1 of the previous article. 40. This law was harshly criticized at the time of its passage for its vague language and alleged infringement of freedom of expression. In a letter signed by 139 Greek historians, they argue that, as international experience has shown, such provisions lead down dangerous paths. They critically wound the democratic and inalienable right to freedom of speech, while simultaneously not being at all effective in terms of fighting racism and Nazism. Indeed, they often lead to the opposite result, allowing the enemies of democracy to present themselves to public opinion as victims of censorship and authoritarianism. The conditions set forth in the bill, being highly vague and fluid, are unfortunately not a guarantee. 41. The first prosecution under Article 2 of the law was brought against German historian Heinz A. Richter, who was tried in absentia for denying Nazi atrocities in Crete during World War II. The court found Richter not guilty on the grounds that, while his work was proven to contain historical inaccuracies, there was no evidence he intended to incite hatred against the people of Crete. 42. And that the 2014 law was unconstitutional, as it violated the principle of freedom of speech. 43. Though the finding of unconstitutionality is not finally binding, as it was issued by a court of first instance, as of March 2018, no one has been successfully convicted in Greece for genocide denial under this law. 44. Hungary. The National Assembly of Hungary declared the denial or trivialization of the Holocaust a crime punishable by up to 3 years imprisonment on February 23, 2010. 45. The law was signed by President Laszlo Selim in March 2010. 46. On June 8, 2010, the newly elected Fidesz-dominated parliament changed the formulation of the law to punish those who deny the genocides committed by National Socialist or Communist systems, or deny other facts of deeds against humanity. 47. The word Holocaust is no longer in the law. In 2011, the first man was charged with Holocaust denial in Budapest. The court sentenced the man to 18 months in prison, suspended for 3 years, and probation. He also had to visit either Budapest's Memorial Museum, Auschwitz, or Yad Vashem in Jerusalem. He chose his local Holocaust Memorial Center and had to make 3 visits in total and record his observations. 48. In January 2015, the court ordered far-right online newspaper 𝙲𝙰𝙃.info to delete its article denying the Holocaust published in July 2013, which was the first ruling in Hungary of its kind. 49. The Association for Civil Liberties, TASS, offered free legal aid to the website as a protest against restrictions on freedom of speech. 50. But the site refused citing the liberal views of the association, and also refused to delete the article. 51. Israel. In Israel, a law to criminalize Holocaust denial was passed by the Knesset on July 8, 1986. Denial of Holocaust, Prohibition, Law, 5746-1986. Definitions. 1. In this law, crime against the Jewish people and crime against humanity have the same respective meanings as in the Nazis and Nazi collaborators law, 5710-1950. Prohibition of denial of Holocaust. 2. A person who, in writing or by word of mouth, publishes any statement denying or diminishing the proportions of acts committed in the period of the Nazi regime, which are crimes against the Jewish people or crimes against humanity, with intent to defend the perpetrators of those acts or to express sympathy or identification with them, shall be liable to imprisonment for a term of 5 years. Prohibition of publication of expression for sympathy for Nazi crimes. 3. A person who, in writing or by word of mouth, publishes any statement expressing praise or sympathy for or identification with acts done in the period of the Nazi regime, which are crimes against the Jewish people or crimes against humanity, shall be liable to imprisonment for a term of 5 years. Permitted publication. 4. The publication of a correct and fair report of a publication prohibited by this law shall not be regarded as an offense thereunder so long as it is not made with intent to express sympathy or identification with the perpetrators of crimes against the Jewish people or against humanity. Filing of charge. 5. An indictment for offenses under this law shall only be filed by or with the consent of the Attorney General. 52. Italy. The Italian Parliament, extending an anti-racism law from 1975, approved law June 16, 2016 n. 115, criminalizing the spreading of Holocaust denial and making conviction for the crime subject to imprisonment for 2 to 6 years. 53-54, Liechtenstein. Although not specifically outlining National Socialist crimes, Item 5 of Section 283 of Liechtenstein's Criminal Code prohibits the denial of genocide. Section 283 Race discrimination. Whoever publicly denies, coarsely trivializes, or tries to justify genocide or other crimes against humanity via word, writing, pictures, electronically transmitted signs, gestures, violent acts or by other means shall be punished with imprisonment for up to 2 years. 55. Lithuania. In Lithuania, approval and denial of Nazi or Soviet crimes is prohibited. 172. Publicly condoning international crimes, crimes of the USSR or Nazi Germany against the Republic of Lithuania and her inhabitants, denial or belittling of such crimes. 56. Luxembourg. In Luxembourg, Article 457(3) of the Criminal Code, Act of July 19, 1997 outlaws Holocaust denial and denial of other genocides. 57. The punishment is imprisonment for between 8 days and 6 months and/or a fine. 57. The offense of negationism and revisionism applies to anyone who has contested, minimized, justified or denied the existence of war crimes or crimes against humanity as defined in the statutes of the International Military Tribunal of August 8, 1945 or the existence of a genocide as defined by the Act of August 8, 1985. A complaint must be lodged by the person against whom the offense was committed, victim or association, in order for proceedings to be brought. Article 450 of the Criminal Code, Act of July 19, 1997. 57. Netherlands. While Holocaust denial is not explicitly illegal in the Netherlands, the courts consider it a form of spreading hatred and therefore an offense. 58. According to the Dutch Public Prosecution Office, offensive remarks are only punishable by Dutch law if they equate to discrimination against a particular group. 59. The relevant laws of the Dutch Penal Code are as follows. Article 137c. He who in public, either verbally or in writing or image, deliberately offends a group of people because of their race, their religion or beliefs, their hetero or homosexual orientation or their physical, psychological or mental handicap, shall be punished with imprisonment not exceeding 1 year or a fine of the third category. 60. Article 137d. He who in public, either verbally or in writing or image, incites hatred or discrimination against people or incites acts of violence towards people or property of people because of their race, their religion or beliefs, their gender, their hetero or homosexual orientation or their physical, psychological or mental handicap, shall be punished with imprisonment not exceeding 1 year or a fine of the third category. 61. Poland. In Poland, Holocaust denial and the denial of communist crimes is punishable by law. Act of December 18, 1998 on the Institute of National Remembrance, Commission for the Prosecution of Crimes Against the Polish Nation, DEZU. 1998 near 155 Pause. 1016. Article 55. He who publicly and contrary to facts contradicts the crimes mentioned in Article 1, Clause 1 shall be subject to a fine or a penalty of deprivation of liberty of up to 3 years. The judgment shall be made publicly known. Article 1. This act shall govern 1. The registration, collection, access, management and use of the documents of the organs of state security created and collected between July 22, 1944 and December 31, 1989, and the documents of the organs of security of the Third Reich and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics concerning a. Crimes perpetrated against persons of Polish nationality and Polish citizens of other ethnicity, nationalities in the period between September 1, 1939 and December 31, 1989, Nazi crimes, communist crimes, other crimes constituting crimes against peace, crimes against humanity or war crimes. B. Other politically motivated repressive measures committed by functionaries of Polish prosecution bodies or the judiciary or persons acting upon their orders, and disclosed in the content of the rulings given pursuant to the Act of February 23, 1991 on the acknowledgement as null and void decisions delivered on persons repressed for activities for the benefit of the independent Polish state, Journal of Laws of 1993 No. 34, Item 149. Of 1995 No. 36, Item 159, No. 28, Item 143, and of 1998 No. 97, Item 604, 2. The rules of procedure as regards the prosecution of crimes specified in Point 1 Letter A, 3. The protection of the personal data of grieved parties, and 4. The conduct of activities as regards public education. 62. Portugal. Although denial of the Holocaust is not expressly illegal in Portugal, Portuguese law prohibits denial of war crimes if used to incite to discrimination. Article 240, racial, religious, or sexual discrimination. 2. Whoever in a public meeting, in writing intended for dissemination, or by any means of mass media or computer system whose purpose is to disseminate. B. Defames or slanders an individual or group of individuals because of race, color, ethnic or national origin, or religion, particularly through the denial of war crimes or those against peace and humanity, with intent to incite to racial, religious or sexual discrimination or to encourage it, shall be punished with imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years. 63. Romania. In Romania, Emergency Ordinance No. 31 of March 13, 2002 prohibits Holocaust denial. It was ratified on May 6, 2006. The law also prohibits racist, fascist, xenophobic symbols, uniforms and gestures, proliferation of which is punishable with imprisonment from between 6 months to 5 years. Emergency Ordinance No. 31 of March 13, 2002. Article 3. 1. Establishing a fascist, racist or xenophobic organization is punishable by imprisonment from 5 to 15 years and the loss of certain rights.
So basically, while looking for the evidence to prove it, ran into Germany Must Perish, Jewish person Theodor N. Kaufman, who wanted to exterminate the German people, who also talked about final solution in 1941. And here we read discussions at the Wannsee Conference in January 1942 made it clear that the German, quote, final solution of the Jewish question, unquote, was intended eventually to include Britain and all the neutral states in Europe, including Ireland, Switzerland, Turkey, Sweden, Portugal, and Spain. So Theodor Kaufman wanted to exterminate the German people. And people can read that book, Germany Must Perish, also in color online. And perhaps that was a reaction to what happened from 1939 and years before that already. And now we see these people advocate a population reduction to 500 million. So that's even worse, you could argue, than expelling the certain groups of people that the fascists are phobic about. Homophobia, racism, and anti-Semitism, of course. But okay, I'm pretty tired. Let's read the rest of the article. It's almost 4 o'clock in the Netherlands.
Article 4. 1. The dissemination, sale or manufacture of symbols either fascist, racist or xenophobic, and possession of such symbols is punished with imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years and the loss of certain rights. Article 5. Promoting the culture of persons guilty of committing a crime against peace and humanity or promoting fascist, racist or xenophobic ideology, through propaganda, committed by any means, in public, is punishable by imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years and the loss of certain rights. Article 6. Denial of the Holocaust.
So basically my point again is 2 wrongs don't make a right, you could argue.
In public, or to the effects thereof is punishable by imprisonment from 6 months to 5 years and the loss of certain rights. 64. Russia Main Article, Law Against Rehabilitation of Nazism. In May 2014, Russia's President Vladimir Putin signed a law making the denial of Nazi crimes and wittingly spreading false information about the activity of the USSR during the years of World War II or portraying Nazis as heroes a criminal offense. 65-66, Slovakia. In Slovakia, Holocaust denial has been a crime since 2001, Law 485/2001, and the Penal Law, 300/2005, specifies in Section 422d that who publicly denies, approves or tries to justify the Holocaust, crimes of regimes based on fascist ideology, crimes of regimes based on communist ideology or crimes of other similar movements that use violence, the threat of violence or the threat of other serious harm with the aim of suppressing the fundamental rights and freedoms of persons shall be punished by imprisonment of 6 months to 3 years. Spain. Genocide denial was illegal in Spain until the Constitutional Court of Spain ruled that the words deny or were unconstitutional in its judgment of November 7, 2007. 67. As a result, Holocaust denial is legal in Spain, although justifying the Holocaust or any other genocide is an offense punishable by imprisonment in accordance with the Constitution. 68. Penal Code Book 2, Title 24 Crimes Against the International Community, Chapter 2, Crimes of Genocide, Article 607.1. 1. Those who, with the intention to total or partially destroy a national, ethnic, racial or religious group, perpetrate the following acts, will be punished. 1. With a prison sentence of 15 to 20 years, if they killed to some of its members. If the fact 2 or more aggravating circumstances concurred in, the greater punishment in degree will prevail. 2. With a prison of 15 to 20 years, if they sexually attacked to some of members of the group, or produced some of the injuries anticipated in Article 149. 3. With prison sentence of 8 to 15 years, if they subjected the group or any one of its individuals to conditions of existence that put their lives in danger or seriously disturbed their health, or when they produced some to them of the injuries anticipated in Article 150. 4. With the same punishment, if they carried out, unavoidable, displacements of the group or their members, they adopted any measurement that tend to prevent their sort of life or reproduction, or transferred by force individuals from a group to another one. 5. With imprisonment of 4 to 8 years, if they produced any other injury different from the ones indicated in numbers 2 and 3 of this section. 2. The diffusion by any means of ideas or doctrines that deny or justify the crimes in the previous section of this article, or tries the rehabilitation of regimes or institutions which they protect, generating practices of such, will be punished with a prison sentence of 1 to 2 years. 69. Switzerland. Holocaust denial is not expressly illegal in Switzerland, but the denial of genocide and other crimes against humanity is an imprisonable offense. Art. 261 bis 1. Racial discrimination. Whoever publicly, by word, writing, image, gesture, acts of violence or any other manner, demeans or discriminates against an individual or a group of individuals because of their race, their ethnicity or their religion in a way which undermines human dignity, or on those bases, denies, coarsely minimizes or seeks to justify a genocide or other crimes against humanity, shall be punished with up to 3 years imprisonment or a fine. 70. European Union. The European Union's Executive Commission proposed a European Union-wide anti-racism xenophobia law in 2001, which included the criminalization of Holocaust denial. On July 15, 1996, the Council of the European Union adopted the Joint Action /96/443/JHA concerning action to combat racism and xenophobia. 71-72. During the German presidency there was an attempt to extend this ban. 73. Full implementation was blocked by the United Kingdom and the Nordic countries because of the need to balance the restrictions on voicing racist opinions against the freedom of expression. 74. As a result, a compromise has been reached within the EU, and while the EU has not prohibited Holocaust denial outright, a maximum term of 3 years in jail is optionally available to all member nations for denying or grossly trivializing crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes. 75-76. The EU extradition policy regarding Holocaust denial was tested in the UK during the 2008 failed extradition case brought against the suspected Holocaust denier Frederick Tobin 77, by the German government. As there is no specific crime of Holocaust denial in the UK, the German government had applied for Tobin's extradition for racial and xenophobic crimes. Tobin's extradition was refused by the Westminster Magistrates' Court, and the German government withdrew its appeal to the High Court. European Union Framework Decision for Combating Racism and Xenophobia, 2007. The text establishes that the following intentional conduct will be punishable in all EU member states: publicly inciting to violence or hatred, even by dissemination or distribution of tracts, pictures or other material, directed against a group of persons or a member of such a group defined by reference to race, color, religion, descent or national or ethnic origin. Publicly condoning, denying or grossly trivializing crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity and war crimes as defined in the statutes of the International Criminal Court, Articles 6, 7 and 8, directed against a group.
So how does that work with these people with book quotes that prove they want to reduce the global population to 500 million? Is that not public and open incitement to commit genocide, I wonder? because the group they're targeting is the human race as a whole, and I think their job is to protect and serve the tax-paying citizens, correct me if I'm wrong. So the government should arrest them, also if they're government officials or high-placed leaders. If advocating annihilation of 7 billion people with, for example, airborne Ebola is in violation of the Genocide Convention. If not, there may be some other laws that are applicable, since advocating murdering one person is illegal already. I argue that advocating a population reduction to 500 million is not legal. And I can show the Kissinger quote again, but I think we've seen that enough now. So check my previous broadcast for the Kissinger quote about the illegal we do immediately, the unconstitutional takes a little longer, or something down those lines.
Of persons or a member of such a group defined by reference to race, color, religion, descent or national or ethnic origin, and crimes defined by the Tribunal of Nuremberg, Article 6 of the Charter of the International Military Tribunal, London Agreement of 1945, directed against a group of persons or a member of such a group defined by reference to race, color, religion, descent or national or ethnic origin. Member states may choose to punish only conduct which is either carried out in a manner likely to disturb public order or which is threatening, abusive or insulting. The reference to religion is intended to cover, at least, conduct which is a pretext for directing acts against a group of persons or a member of such a group defined by reference to race, color, descent, or national or ethnic origin. Member states will ensure that these conducts are punishable by criminal penalties of a maximum of at least between 1 and 3 years of imprisonment. 78. 2019 European Court of Human Rights decision on October 3, 2019, in the case Pastors v. Germany, application number 55225-1479, the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, unanimously ruled that a decision of the German courts determining that the statement made by the German politician, Udo Pastors, that the so-called Holocaust is being used for political and commercial purposes as well as other Holocaust denial comments were a violation of the memory of the dead and an intentional defamation of the Jewish people, and that the courts had not violated Article 10, freedom of expression, of the European Convention on Human Rights in convicting him for this offense. Furthermore, the ECHR decided by 4 votes to 3 that there had been no violation of Article 6 Section 1, right to a fair trial, of the European Convention on Human Rights. 80. Prosecutions and convictions laws against Holocaust denial have been enforced in most jurisdictions that have them. Convictions and sentencings include: date, name, country where the sentence was pronounced, sentence September 1987, June 1999, April 2016, Jean-Marie Le Pen, France, Germany, fines of €183,000, 1987, €6,000, 1999, 81, and €30,000, 2016, 82. February 27, 1998, Roger Garaudy, France, 6 months imprisonment, suspended, 240,000, 37,500 euros, fine 83. July 21, 1998, Jürgen Gruff, Switzerland, 15 months imprisonment, fled Switzerland to avoid sentence 84. July 21, 1998, Gerard Forster, Switzerland, 12 months imprisonment, disgorgement 85. April 8, 1999, Frederick Tobin, Australia, 7 months imprisonment, Mannheim, Germany, retrial, 2011, indefinitely stayed by Judge Dr. May Einerzagen. October 1 to November 19, 2008, London, extradition to Mannheim, Germany, on European arrest warrant issued by Germany, failed, August 15 to November 12, 2009, Adelaide, Australia, for contempt of court because he refused to stop questioning the Holocaust's 3 basics: 6 million, systematic state extermination, gas chambers as murder weapon. May 27, 1999, Jean Plante, France, 6 months imprisonment, suspended, fine, damages 86, April 11, 2000 Gaston Armand Amadeus Switzerland 1 year's imprisonment, damages 87, February 20, 2006 David Irving Austria 3 years imprisonment. 88, released and deported after serving 13 months. March 15, 2006 German Rudolph Germany 2.5 years imprisonment. 89, October 3, 2006 Robert Forson France €7,500 fine, 3 months probation.
So I think this could be a reason that some people are anti-Semitic, perhaps even a lot of them, and so that's why I think it's good to have evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that 6 million people were systematically murdered. And so I'd like that evidence, things that prove that it happened beyond any reasonable doubt. And I think that such evidence must exist if it's illegal to deny the Holocaust as it is presented to us by historians. Then they must have that evidence, and I was one of the people in my class with the lowest grade for history, because I refused to learn, because I thought it's written by the victor, or at that time I didn't think that, but I thought that it can't be totally true. And it turns out there are 10 lies taught in schools. You can watch the video on YouTube, I'm sure there are more. But most of what they teach in schools is true, basically. So history is not an exact science like mathematics, for example, and physics, history lessons. So I'm sure that you all know better what proves it beyond any reasonable doubt than I do. So that's why I appreciate it if people can post in the chat, in the comments, what they think is the best and easiest evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that genocide happened in the Holocaust, and that it is possible that they killed, because they also write about fusillations, not just gassings. So then can they disprove? Basically, that would be an illegal question, perhaps, in some countries. But if I were to prove to a Nazi that it really happened, what would be the best evidence to use? Are there web pages? There must be some way to convince these people that it really happened. So let me know in the comments or Skype, ProLogic999.
February 15, 2007 Ernst Zundel Germany 5 years imprisonment. 91, November 8, 2007 Vincent Renoir France 1 year's imprisonment and a fine of €10,000. 92, January 14, 2008 Wolfgang Fröhlich Austria 6 years imprisonment, third offense. 93, January 15, 2008 Sylvia Stolz Germany 3.5 years imprisonment. 94, March 11, 2009 Horst Mahler Germany 5 years imprisonment. 95, October 23, 2009 Dirk Zimmermann Germany 9 months imprisonment. 96, October 27, 2009 Richard Williamson Germany €12,000 fine. 97, later overturned.
And you could argue images don't prove anything either. It's about the other image that I'm not going to show, but about the earlier one, they may not have counted the Auschwitz, what was the image? Let's see if I can turn it on. this image about 1948, supporting the creation of Israel. Auschwitz displays memorial that mourns 4 million murdered. 4 million people suffered and died here at the hands of the Nazi murderers between the years 1940 and 1945. And 1989, the USSR released captured death registry volumes. Auschwitz quietly revises plaque down to 1.5 mil. Forever let this place be a cry of despair and a warning to humanity, where the Nazis murdered about 1.5 million men, women and children, mainly Jews from various countries of Europe. Auschwitz, Birkenau, 1940 to 1945. Wait a minute, a 2.5 million people mistake. Ernst Zundel and others are in prison for only questioning the Zionist number of 6 million Jews. Was Israel created on a total lie? Truth does not fear investigation. 𝙲𝙾𝙲𝚃𝚃𝚃𝚃𝚃. So I could argue this is illegal already in some countries. It's an illegal question. The law makes that clear, basically. And if they made a mistake on the commemoration stones, then that doesn't mean that the 6 million number is not roughly accurate. So it doesn't disprove that, you could argue. So that was my point, that this may not be counted in the total of 6 million. They can probably show how the 6 million number is put together with all the people that were tortured to death and murdered in horrible ways in the concentration camps. And that should be online somewhere. So I think that most people out there know better than I do what good sources are, etc. There's some experts out there. So I think education is also a key to universal peace creation. And I don't know about these illustrations. I haven't even verified if this is true. Perhaps they just made it up. I don't know if they're anti-Semites or whatever.
Citation needed, August 16, 2012. 𝙲𝙾𝙲𝚃, Germany, 8-month imprisonment, suspended on probation. 98, January 31, 2013. Georgi Nagy, Hungary, 18-month suspended jail sentence. 99, February 11, 2015. Vincent Renoir, France, 2 years imprisonment. 100, November 12, 2015. Ursula.
With or whatever, I mean, or if it's some kind of macabre joke, basically. We saw Felix Kjellberg recently. But I think that it's good that YouTube is giving them another chance, and perhaps they have become more tolerant lately qua user policy. I hear many people use the F word, etc. And as long as that's not used as part of hate speech, I think that that is tolerated. At least I don't see these videos being removed, so. And I think that's alright, that they're very strict when it comes to human lives, that they are helping to protect people out there with their user policy. So I agree with the user policy, and I try to be fully in compliance with it. But for example, there are 227 forbidden YouTube words. A mosquito. Got it. I need a piece of paper. 227 forbidden YouTube words. So sometimes it can happen that people are in violation of the policy. Then please leave a comment and I will remove the video if I think you are correct, and thank you for helping to prevent the end of my channel. So it's not just 227 words that people can't use on YouTube, but it's sometimes a bit complicated to find out what exactly is allowed, what is not allowed. And I think there was also an app that people can use to determine what their score is, basically, qua algorithms, to not just be in compliance but also get many more views by first testing how the title and the tag words are in compliance with the algorithms that also are a factor in the search results, basically. So if you know that app and stuff, please let me know in the comments, because I gotta get some more views. We have to control factors that control aging and time and create a perfect society, and otherwise everybody dies forever for trillions of years because of death, aging.
Haverbeck, Germany, 10 months imprisonment. 101.
That was unintentional, or perhaps the AI had planned this. So that was the last person on Wikipedia, the list of prosecuted and convicted people. And they only list 10 months imprisonment here. So perhaps somebody can calculate how long exactly she has been in prison, because all these sentences combined, I think, might be longer than 2 years already. And I don't know if that's not a disproportionate sentence for such an old lady. I've already explained that Hitler and others have definitely also used hypnosis. I mean, people working under Hitler. You have psychoanalysts and psychiatrists and hypnotists, and you had them long before the Second World War started. And the question is how to prevent another Third World War. Preventing beats curing. So if you know the best way, let me know in the comments. But one idea is deterrence, and I think that has worked all these years, but that perhaps we're dealing with a military order, the Jesuits, and I've already explained about the policy. And I was going to read more about the Holocaust in next broadcast. I might cover more news qua Iran. I'm kind of waiting for Gantz to be prime minister and then to see what his policy is, if he endorses the two-state solution world war policy of the Vatican. And that may be the reason they replaced Bibi with Gantz, giving the Palestinians self-rule, etc., basically essentially a two-state solution, World War plan, divide to conquer. Or not, if he has other plans. So then, when I know a bit more about it, then I can do a broadcast about it. Other victims of Nazi persecution: Soviet citizens and POWs, prisoners of war, non-Jewish Poles, Roma, political and religious opponents, gay men and black people. So we can read the part about extermination camps and gas chambers. But if that has some kind of lead to the evidence that I argue must exist. Also because it's illegal in so many countries to deny the Holocaust.
Extermination camps and gas chambers. Further information. Section: Extermination camps. Victims were transported in sealed freight trains from all over Europe to extermination camps equipped with gas chambers. 41. The stationary facilities grew out of Nazi experiments with poison gas during the Action T4 mass murder, euthanasia, program against the disabled and mentally ill, which began in 1939. 42. The Germans set up 6 extermination camps in Poland in 1941 to 1942, Auschwitz II, Birkenau, Majdanek, Chelmo, and the 3 Operation Reinhard camps, Belsk, Sobibor, and Treblinka. 5. Discussions at the Wannsee Conference in January 1942 made it clear that the German final solution of the Jewish question was intended eventually to include Britain and all the neutral states in Europe, including Ireland, Switzerland, Turkey, Sweden, Portugal, and Spain. 43. Collaboration. Main articles: Responsibility for the Holocaust, Collaboration with the Axis powers, German-occupied Europe, and Resistance during World War II. Historians increasingly view the Holocaust as a pan-European phenomenon, or a series of holocausts impossible to conduct without the help of local collaborators. Without collaborators, the Germans would not have been able to extend the Holocaust across most of the continent. 44, 45, 46. The industrialization and scale of the murder was unprecedented. Killings were systematically conducted in virtually all areas of occupied Europe, more than 20 occupied countries. 48. Nearly 3 million Jews in occupied Poland and between 700,000 and 2.5 million Jews in the Soviet Union were killed. Hundreds of thousands more died in the rest of Europe. 49. The mass shootings in the occupied Soviet Union, writes Timothy Snyder, required tens of thousands of participants and was witnessed by hundreds of thousands of people. 50. According to Donald Bloxham, in many parts of Europe extreme collective violence was becoming an accepted measure of resolving identity crises. The Third Reich was a product of the continent as well as the most destructive shaper of it. 51. Some Christian churches defended converted Jews, but otherwise, Saul Friedlander wrote in 2007, not one social group, not one religious community, not one scholarly institution or professional association in Germany and throughout Europe declared its solidarity with the Jews. 52. Medical experiments. Main articles: Nazi human experimentation and doctor's trial, the 23 defendants during the doctor's trial, Nuremberg, December 9, 1946, August 20, 1947. Medical experiments conducted on camp inmates by the SS were another distinctive feature. 53. At least 7,000 prisoners were subjected to experiments, most died as a result, during the experiments or later. 54. 23 senior physicians and other medical personnel were charged at Nuremberg, after the war, with crimes against humanity. They included the head of the German Red Cross, tenured professors, clinic directors, and biomedical researchers. 55. Experiments took place at Auschwitz, Buchenwald, Dachau, Natzweilerstraße, Neuengamme, Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen, and elsewhere. Some dealt with sterilization of men and women, the treatment of war wounds, ways to counteract chemical weapons, research into new vaccines and drugs, and the survival of harsh conditions. 54. The most notorious physician was Joseph Mengele, an SS officer who became the Auschwitz camp doctor on May 30, 1943. 56. Interested in genetics. 56. And keen to experiment on twins, he would pick out subjects from.
So basically, according to what I read, Hitler must have advocated extermination of lots of people. But not 7 billion people, I think. Though you could argue his Neuordnung, New World Order, global government plan was basically the same thing. Population reduction to 500 million, basically.
The new arrivals during selection on the ramp, shouting "Zwillingeros," twins step forward. 57. They would be measured, killed, and dissected. One of Mengele's assistants said in 1946 that he was told to send organs of interest to the directors of the Anthropological Institute in Berlin-Dahlem. This is thought to refer to Mengele's academic supervisor, Ottmar Freiherr von Verschuer, director from October 1942 of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Anthropology, Human Heredity, and Eugenics in Berlin-Dahlem. 58-57 J. Mengele's experiments included placing subjects in pressure chambers, testing drugs on them, freezing them, attempting to change their eye color by injecting chemicals into children's eyes, and amputations and other surgeries. 61.
Makes me think of the depleted uranium babies again, which I won't show in this broadcast because it's too shocking, so it's just text and we can always think of something else if we want to. But I think it is good to confront ourselves to a certain extent with the horrible things humanity has done to itself, and this to ascertain that it will never happen again, never again World War.
Action T4, German, pronounced, Action T5, was a post-war name for mass murder through involuntary euthanasia in Nazi Germany. 4b, the name T4 is an abbreviation of Tiergartenstrasse 4, a street address of the Chancellery Department set up in the spring of 1940, in the Berlin borough of Tiergarten, which recruited and paid personnel associated with T4. 5c, certain German physicians were authorized to select patients deemed incurably sick, after most critical medical examination and then administer to them a mercy death, Gnadentod. 7. In October 1939, Adolf Hitler signed a euthanasia note, backdated to September 1, 1939, which authorized his physician Karl Brandt and Reichsleiter Philipp Bühler to implement the program. The killings took place from September 1939 until the end of the war in 1945.
So it was 1939, and this was 1941. So basically they advocated the final solution before Kaufman did, and that was the piece of evidence that I was looking for, basically, qua that book. So people can also study the 10 phases of genocide, and dehumanization is one phase of it, and I think that's also illegal, to pretend of humans that they're animals or cows or sheep. So basically what we see on this illustration with calling people sheeple, that's dehumanization, part of the 10 phases of genocide. And of course the Jesuits have that witch's cauldron, the image that I've shown before. Perhaps I can show that again if I find the right picture show, because the picture show is working again. Of the witch's cauldron with the wolves dancing around it, of Saint Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits. It's this one. Camouflaged FIPA, frequency independent phased array antennas, through the wall radar, that type of thing. Agencies. Also covered their mottos. Universal temporal power. There, that's the coat of arms I was talking about, with the wolves and the witch's cauldron in the middle, the cooking pot. And I've also covered allegations of cannibalism on universecreator.weebly.com, Jesuits cannibalism and Jesuit Holocaust, etc. And these are not my opinions, of course, these are claims of other people, so I mentioned the sources, and you could argue that anything that's written cannot be accepted as evidence, and so you must have physical evidence. And there are several types, like with the paleontologists that know that humans are originally herbivores, that they used to eat plants only, that they were not carnivores nor omnivores, because of the skulls, the bones they found of humans. So the jaw of the meat eaters is different than the jaw of the plant eaters. And later they also started eating meat, of course, and developing fangs, etc. But one of the reasons I'm vegetarian is that it's healthiest to be vegetarian, vegan actually, as long as you've taken a vitamin B12. That's very important. If you are becoming a vegetarian or vegan person, then you have to make sure you stay up on vitamin B12. And there are vegan sources for vitamin B12, including B12 spray. So ascertain that you have your daily dose of vitamin B12 and eat a balanced diet. Many top sports athletes and others are vegan. And the documentary What the Health is very informative. You can watch that on Vimeo. And of course the animal protein and animal fat increases people's cancer risk. And the people that want to reduce the global population, others that make trillions of the cadaver industry, the meat industry, lie about certain things, certain facts, because it helps with their population reduction, since up to 16 kilograms of cancer hormone cow meat are needed to produce 1 kilogram. Sorry, it's pretty late already. Up to 16 kilograms of cancer hormone. Up to 16 kilograms of grain. Up to 16 kilograms of effing grain are required to produce 1 kilogram of cancer hormone cow meat. So yeah, these remotely controlled insects are real, and I think so is the AI that will annihilate 7 billion people, and then they'll rule the world from Zion, basically from Jerusalem. That the Matrix could be predictive programming about if there would be a world war tomorrow, then Zion is where the party would be. And also the temple of Epstein with the golden dome that disappeared. That's all predictive programming according to some sources online, including the eating babies remark by some lady recently covered in the mainstream media. She claimed that we have to start eating babies, etc. And that may be predictive programming for the coming world war, when the Kissinger method of controlling the food supplies implemented the BFT, Blue Force Tracking. So check it out in my previous broadcast or on Wiki or with Google. Also, US soldiers and US citizens and European citizens will be designated as enemy combatants if they leave their home quarantines. So they cannot leave their home for water and food. So that's why I advise people to prepare with a radiological water filter and storable food. If the government is prepared, they have COG, continuity of government, why shouldn't we be? Because they want to reduce the global population to 500 million perhaps. I'm sure they have the reasons.
From 275,000 to 300,000 people were killed in psychiatric hospitals in Germany and Austria, occupied Poland and the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, now the Czech Republic. 8. The number of victims was originally recorded as 70,273, but this number has been increased by the discovery of victims listed in the archives of the former East Germany. 9. About half of those killed were taken from church-run asylums, often with the approval of the Protestant or Catholic authorities of the institutions. 10. The Holy See announced on December 2, 1940 that the policy was contrary to the natural and positive divine law, and that the direct killing of an innocent person because of mental or physical defects is not allowed, but the declaration was not upheld by some Catholic authorities in Germany. In the summer of 1941, protests were led in Germany by the Bishop of Münster, Clemens von Galen, whose intervention led to the strongest, most explicit and most widespread protest movement against any policy since the beginning of the Third Reich, according to Richard J. Evans. 11. Several reasons have been suggested for the killings, including eugenics, compassion, reducing suffering, racial hygiene and saving money. 12. Physicians in German and Austrian asylums continued many of the practices of Action T4 until the defeat of Germany in 1945, in spite of its official cessation in August 1941. The informal continuation of the policy led to 93,521 beds emptied by the end of 1941. 13. Technology developed under Action T4 was taken over by the Medical Division of the Reich Interior Ministry, particularly the use of lethal gas to kill large numbers of people, along with the personnel of Action T4, who participated in Operation Reinhard. 17. The program was authorized by Hitler, but the killings have since come to be viewed as murders in Germany. The number of people killed was about 200,000 in Germany and Austria, with about 100,000 victims in other European countries. Lifton, R. J. 2000, The Nazi Doctors, Medical Killing and the Psychology of Genocide, New York, Basic Books, ISBN 978-0465-049-059.
So I think there are also loads of facts that you're not going to find on the internet. And there are lots of lies as well out there, so watch out. Well, I think I am going to have to get some sleep. Enough of all this democide and population reduction. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe and share this important video on your timeline. And check my other videos for universal peace. Thank you all for your likes and subscribes. Well, I hope personally that they release Miss Haverbeck soon. I think that 1 day in prison is a long time already. And perhaps with my condition I would die. I also have a doctor's prescription for the use of cannabis. And there was also a protest to release Miss Haverbeck, I think. So we can talk about this on Skype, and perhaps also upload videos to other channels, not necessarily YouTube. And if it's not in violation of the user policy, then I can just upload it to YouTube, of course. I think there you get more views than on other platforms or with stream websites. So I think YouTube is the best qua live streaming, and perhaps the only free live stream possibility for people out there. So I think this broadcast is pretty reasonable. Just to let the people know that the 90-year-old lady is locked up for denying the Holocaust, and that we've seen that in some countries prison sentences are longer and in others they're shorter, but in most of the world there are no laws that have made Holocaust denial illegal or forbidden. So that concentrates mainly around the center of evil, around the birthplace of Adolf Hitler in countries of Europe, and also China, but India also has a lot of people, and there's no law against Holocaust denial in India. And I could look at what we've read again, if you can see that as evidence. Well, this action T4 looks pretty real to me. So people can study this, take Wikipedia, the CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia as a starting point, and from there make their own list of evidence. But I think most people don't doubt it. Also because there are many testimonies of people that survived the Holocaust and that witnessed the razzias and other events personally. And my grandfather was in the resistance, so my parents and grandmother used to talk about him. So I'm convinced most people don't want another world war with mutually assured destruction and severe nuclear winter. So at least we can all agree on that, I think. And perhaps the AI is just checking you all via me, via this broadcast, so that if you're in a position of power, you will be replaced by the AI, so that the world war can never happen again. It's just an idea, I don't think so, but who knows? It would be an idea anyway. Preventing World War III, creating universal peace, the perfect society in which we all will live happily eternally. It is possible because everything is energy, so never give up hoping and loving and doing the right thing. So yeah, you had action T4 and what we read on Wikipedia. So it's fully documented and but okay, just action T4 by itself is worth a study. And I think after this most people will be convinced that millions of Jewish people died at the hands of the Nazis. Perhaps not exactly 6 million, could be one or a couple of difference, perhaps more or less, so it's an estimate, of course. But they cannot they cannot disprove it to me either. Is there anybody with evidence to disprove it? I don't think so. So the question is, what is the evidence that proves it? So technology developed under Action T4 was taken over by the medical division of the Reich Interior Ministry, particularly the use of lethal gas to kill large numbers of people, along with the personnel of Action T4 who participated in Operation Reinhardt. The program was authorized by Hitler, but the killings have since come to be viewed as murders in Germany. The number of people killed was about 200,000 in Germany and Austria, with about 100,000 victims in other European countries. Well, I'm too tired now, so I'm not going to find the answer right now. Perhaps you all can help. How to get to the 6 million number. I'm sure it is provable. At least it's historically documented. Perhaps peer-reviewed scientific documents and things like that exist. But I think it's more important to just prevent another world war, to have a world peace agreement between all countries, so that if one country tries to invade another country, all other countries together unite against people that would attempt to invade another country with military forces or with terrorist groups. And then they wouldn't stand a chance, and then that would exclude the possibility of a third world war completely. And scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete, of course, so it's possible none without a Tesla plasma shield would survive a third world war. So that also has a deterrent effect next to the MAD and severe nuclear winter. So these are things that I put in my broadcast when I talk about world war, and I also talk about universal peace or world peace. Because you never know who's listening. Perhaps there are people that have access to these nuclear codes. I don't know if that's only the president in the US, but I don't know about all these other countries. And I know there are missing nukes, etc., missing trillions, and so I try to look at the big picture and mention stuff that I think is important for the people, and that most people are not murderers. So I figure most people are right, the good people, and they deserve our love and respect, unless they've proven otherwise with their behavior or with lies. And any doomsday devices and building plans must be destroyed, or at least hidden, so that if the person hiding it would die, that it would not be found by anyone else. Perhaps with a self-destruct mechanism, because you could argue there is no use for such a device, it must be destroyed. But Tesla did talk about a device that could split the Earth, etc. And then there's the risk that the Earth would spin off axis. They've never set off that many nukes before, and it is certain and scientifically proven the Earth is already wobbling. So there are many reasons not to, and to prevent a world war, not to go to world war, or not to create one. And I think it's the task of the intel agencies and governments around the world to prevent a world war and create universal peace, to protect and serve the tax-paying citizens, and that they're infiltrated by secret societies and the people that have tortured my teeth out of my mouth, my mother to death, cannot be doing the right thing. So I've not done anything to justify the illegal torture and illegal voice-to-skull messages and other harassment that I was subjected to. So I know beyond any reasonable doubt that there are people, I'm not saying that all of them are, perhaps there is no other, basically only one group of people can do this remote torture, and brainwave alteration. And theoretically they are controlled by the Jesuits, so the Jesuits are to be held accountable, but they can't be because they already control the judges, and they do this from behind the scenes so that no one can hold them responsible. For example, Eric John Phelps claims, well, I'm not going to explain that again. Check my previous broadcasts. So perhaps D4 was only part of it, and I'm too tired now, so I might use this other method. I used to use Google, and then I ran into all these websites of Holocaust deniers, etc., when finding the evidence that proves beyond any reasonable doubt that they've done this. So a movie is not enough to convince me. I'm only convinced that 6 million Jews, or an estimate about 6 million Jews, have died in the World War because it's illegal to deny the Holocaust in many countries. And I think these judges haven't just made these laws based on nothingness or things that are not evidence that prove it beyond any reasonable doubt. Evidence that proves it beyond any reasonable doubt. So, perhaps these secret societies are also playing people out against each other, and they're secret societies for a reason, and it is usually because what they do is illegal, and they may of course claim that it's for other reasons, and perhaps there are also other groups that do stuff that is legit and that are secret societies for a reason. So what other reasons there are, let me know in the comments. I'm way too tired now, it's 4:55, so I definitely gotta get some sleep. Thank you all for watching. Tune in next time. Do stuff for universal peace and healing things, and have fun. And if there is no one to love you, love yourself. And don't engage in legal civil disobedience if you are Extinction Rebellion, etc. Piers Corbin and Action for Life movement is definitely worth taking a look at if you want to know the truth about the global warming hoax, the ecotax money scam run by the NASA Masons, their plan to reduce the global population to 500 million. So yeah, I think advocating population reduction is illegal. They should arrest these people first if they want to convince anyone that they're legitimate government. Thank you all for watching. Tune in next time. And remember, peace. And try something vegetarian or vegan. No, le chef zijn.